Hello there, my name is Michael Betker, and I am your instructor for communication conflict resolution. Let's get started. I just wanted to let you guys know a little bit about me first. Let's start out that way. You guys will have an opportunity, by the way, as well, to share who you are and where you're from through a discussion post, given this is an online course. But here's a bit about me so you kind of know what you're dealing with here from an instructor level. A couple things. I got my BA, my undergrad degree in Madison a long, long time ago. And even a long time ago, I got my Master's of Science here at UW-Whitewater. So I'm an actual graduate from this college. So I'm very proud to be here and very proud to be teaching this class with you guys. I live in Heartland, Wisconsin. About 45-minute drive from to Whitewater. I have been married now 17 years, hard to believe. But along the way here, my wife and I have become parents of two girls, Ainsley, who's now 15 and somewhat precocious, and a 13-year-old whose name is Hayden. I also, see in the inside picture there, I have a dog named Declan, who is the boy I never had. He's probably he's my soulmate in some ways, my dog Declan. He's now 7. I can't believe that either. He's not a puppy anymore. Interesting fact, and I'll ask you guys to talk about this too in the first discussion post. Lived in England for 2 years. And I'll also ask you guys to share your favorite movie. My favorite movie is Fargo. If you haven't seen that movie and you're looking for good drama and conflict, frankly, that results in some very interesting situations, watch Fargo. By the way, we will be watching movie clips, and actually in this little clip here, we will be breaking down a movie to kind of use that as an example. Throughout the course of the semester here, I will be using movies periodically to help illustrate points that we'll discuss from the book and other lectures. Okay, so that's the fun stuff. Here's more of the professional side of things. I'll quickly go through this for you here. I do have a communication background. As I mentioned, I graduated from Whitewater here back in '01. So focused on corporate public communication, which led to a job, my first real job in human resources. So I started out with just being a recruiter, but ultimately ended up becoming a trainer. So I did a lot of training and hiring. So I ultimately became the employee relations manager for a company. And along the way was responsible for training. And one of those things that I trained for a period of time was regarding conflict in the workplace. So do have some experience with that. So I'm excited to bring that knowledge to you guys here in this course. I do have a business background as well. So after a period of time, I went into marketing and advertising and had progressive roles there. So I'm actually an advertising teacher here by trade. So I work in the advertising department. I do have other classes I teach as well, but the bane of my existence primarily is advertising. So one of the things I teach is I teach ad and PR account management, which is customer facing, where you'd work in an agency and you're the person who takes point between the agency and the client. So lots of interactions with people, which can breed conflict. So I love that I teach that class, and this class actually helps inform some of my students in advertising as well. Teaching I came to a little later in life, and the last 5 years I've been teaching. Started out teaching WCTC part-time to see if I liked it, and I really liked it a lot. And then, of course, about 3 years ago now, I came here to Whitewater for a full-time position in the advertising department. Toward that end, some of the classes I teach speech communication, so that 101 class that speech 110 we all have to take. I teach electronic media copywriting, so that's a copywriting course. I also teach media planning and buying. Like I mentioned, ad and PR account management, foundations of advertising, ad campaigns, event planning for the communication professional, and lastly but not leastly, of course, this class, communication conflict resolution. So let's talk about that a little bit. All right, so I'm going to give you a quick overview of what's going on here. Now, obviously, this is an online course, so you'll be getting regular videos like this from me. But the first one here, obviously, we're going to go through is just kind of what's expected and the syllabus generally. Now, you can find all that stuff and all the goodies for this class are tucked into the Canvas course. And so I'm new to Canvas, like I'm sure most of you guys are as well. So we're going to fight through this together. Actually, the more I've worked with Canvas, the more pleased I become. I think just a lot of great tools and bells and whistles in Canvas that maybe D2L, if you had a chance to work with D2L as well, were not available. So, okay, so COM 328, 528. So 528, obviously, there's, I believe, 4 graduate students in class here as well. Graduate students, you'll get separate communications from me regarding some of the stuff we're expecting here along the way. So that'll be kind of your penance for being a grad student. We'll have you guys do a few extra things here and there. It might be an extra discussion post, might be a little extra thing here and there. Nothing too strenuous, but nonetheless, I've got to challenge you guys a little bit. Either way, here is the text, right? Conflict and Communication by Freddie Jant. That's the book. It should be in the bookstore. And it's a great book, actually, and we'll be diving into that here and there. We're not going to read the whole thing, but you'll notice that there's a lot of other articles as well. So this class is 7 modules, and it takes you through this, and some of those modules will include some of the chapters in this book, and along the way we'll also have a lot of different articles and stuff to kind of support what we're talking about. A couple other things required that I'd like you to have, obviously having some kind of a working knowledge of Canvas, and by now hopefully you guys have had a chance to kind of at least play around with it a little bit. Like I said, if you have any questions, obviously there's plenty of resources here on campus, and I can certainly help you with as much as I possibly can. I mean, this is kind of a joke, but working knowledge of email, obviously email is important as well, and that's why we, obviously if we're digital and we're not face-to-face, we have to rely on electronic means. Email is one of the big ones. And I would say by extension too, and I'll give you my cell phone number where I have always with me. So you can text me as well if there's a burning question you have, and we can always get on the phone and talk. More on my office hours as well in a second here. But so obviously working knowledge of email. Now old school, right? I'm an old school guy. I would say, you got to get comfortable with email. A lot of us teachers still like email, and that's kind of how we communicate. So last but not least, of course, it's an online course. So you have to have a computer with internet access, and most of us have that. So that's kind of the starting point here. Let's go to the next slide here. So I mentioned office hours. Here are my office hours, Mondays and Wednesdays. Now, again, I'm going to encourage you guys to reach out to me physically and come to me and visit me during those hours, 2 to 4:30 p.m. every Monday and Wednesday. So I'll be on campus for that. Obviously, I have other classes to teach as well. So just make an appointment with me. Let me know. So I'm always there for you. My number's there. Key thing there is just communicate with me if you've got something going on. And I'm always willing to help. All right, so let's go into the course a bit here. I'm going to kind of break this down for you. Here are the learning objectives. And by the way, everything we're talking about here is in the syllabus, which I've crafted so that it works well with Canvas and the online environment. So first thing we're going to do here, we're going to learn about how to demonstrate knowledge of communication conflict theories and techniques. Now, communication conflict theories, we don't spend a lot of time on that. Conflict as a discipline, a study is relatively new, depending on how you look at it, but relatively new and doesn't have a long storied history. So prior to that, we just kind of went through conflict without a lot of thought going into it. So we're not going to spend a ton of time on that. Chapter 1 and a couple other chapters kind of touch on that. I'm more interested in the techniques, and what I want you guys to take away from this class is just practical knowledge that you can apply to your daily life. So that's why I love this class, or one of the many reasons I love this class. So also you should be able to design problem-solving strategies. So we're going to present challenges, and you guys are going to discuss this in groups about how to solve problems through life. And we're going to have you guys share a lot of stuff like that too, about your own personal situations, and we're going to use some of the stuff we learn in class to apply those to your situation. The third point, possess and demonstrate knowledge of several different negotiation and conflict resolution techniques. Of course, we'll talk about that, and we'll go through that. We have 7 modules, and along the way here, we'll have you kind of learn about negotiation and conflict resolution techniques. And last but not leastly, of course, communication conflict resolutions that are satisfactory to all involved. So we're looking for win-win solutions here as much as possible. That's not the only way to arrive at a solution, but it's probably the best way, the win-win. If I were to show you one slide, this would be it right here. Left-hand column there, you see the modules. Now, the course is laid out in such a way that you would start with module 1 and go down the line. So I've pretty much spent a very large amount of time trying to make sure this made logical sense for you guys. So, and each week I'm going to kind of tee you up a little bit for this, but here are the modules. First one is, of course, course introduction. That will take you through 2 weeks. And then module 2 is all about conflict styles, where you'll learn about your own personal conflict style. You'll take a personalized test to uncover your conflict style. And then immediate module 3 is about power, and the power with and power over. We'll talk about that and just the many dynamics in power. And obviously, if you get into work situations, we're going to talk about power at work and power with gender. It's a lot of fun stuff about power, and you guys will hopefully learn a lot about that. Module 4, deconstructing conflicts. So we'll learn about that. We'll put on the black hat, which is essentially looking at conflict from a very discerning point of view. Now, a lot of times we'll let emotions get in, which is Module 5. We let emotions get in and cloud our judgment about conflict. So I'm going to teach you guys how to kind of step back from the emotions and just think about things logically. And that whole chapter, that whole module is on deconstructing conflicts. Module 5, emotions, right? That's a big one. We'll talk about that and how emotions can kind of have a large effect on how we handle conflict. Module 6 is negotiation, and that's a great one too. That's very practical. Like, how do you get the best price for a car? How do you negotiate the best pay when you get out of college here and you start looking for gainful employment? You know, there's some tips and tricks that we can learn there through the negotiation piece that will not only avoid conflict, but also help you get the best of what you should have. And finally, last but not least, when all else fails, apologies and forgiveness. So that'll be how we'll wrap up this course. So along the way, that's the 7 modules, and like I said, it's laid out linearly, so you should have no problem following along with the material. I've also set it up so that when you get done with a course, the next one will the next one will open up to you like a flower. So you'll have to finish and complete the modules. I want you to stay focused on each module. I don't want you to work ahead. I'd like you to just kind of make sure you get the coursework done before moving on. So I purposefully will not allow you to see the module following until you've finished and completed everything in modules. Right-hand column there, just by the numbers, of course, there are 3 total exams. The first 2 are worth 50 points, and they kind of, you'll see in the syllabus where they are. There's also a final exam as well. That's 100 points. There are 5 thought pieces. So there's 5 throughout the semester. You're going to be asked to write thought pieces on various things, various topics we've talked about. And that's generally 2 pages, double-spaced, 12 points of pica. Roughly 500 to 600 words, more on that. But generally speaking, you can't just write a short blurb and get a good grade on that. Those are worth 40 points apiece. Exams, like I said, are 50, 50, and 100. There are also 7 discussion posts. Obviously, that's a big deal here. And so I'm looking for you guys to really embrace that part of it. Now, if you're new to the online environment, you're going to have to familiarize yourself with the discussion posts. And again, I believe Canvas makes posting very easy. So let me know if you have any trouble with that. But we got one coming up here, so we'll talk about that in a minute. But there are 7 of those throughout the semester. And last but not least, we have 11, count them, 11 reading quizzes. These reading quizzes obviously are meant to dovetail on the articles and chapters we read in the book. So those are essentially open book. You have 30 minutes to complete these. They vary in points from 10 all the way up to 25. So you'll have ample time to do this, and it's, like I said, open book. I do recommend you read the chapter so that at least when you take the quiz, you're familiar with where to look, and you may even know the answer already. But these are open book, and this, in a way, sort of forces you to kind of embrace the material. So more on that in a minute, but let's move on here. So here is how the course breaks out. Now, I've actually tried to make sure the Canvas course mirrors the setup here, but these are the point values. You can kind of look at this at your leisure, but each of these point values is accurate, and it totals up to 1,000 points, which makes it really easy to calculate your score as you go forward here, right? Obviously, if you've got 879 points, you're sitting at a B+, right? And 899 is just on the cusp of an A-. So you'll always have a good feel for where you're sitting with your grade. But this is how it lays out here, and obviously in the back page here, you can use that as a way of kind of keeping score. All right, so grading standards. This is pretty standard, obviously, but what I'm looking for here, just to share with you guys here in this case, is what does an A and a B and a C mean? So obviously an A is outstanding achievement. A B achieves significantly above the basic course requirements, so B is a really good score. C achieves and meets the basic course requirements. Of course, D is worthy of some credit, but of course maybe you've missed a few assignments, or you just didn't always engage in discussion posts, or whatever it happens to be. Maybe you're not achieving as well as you could be. And of course, failure. Now, I've not had anybody fail this course yet, so I'm hoping that we continue with that. Incompletes are not given unless there are extreme circumstances that warrant such a grade. So let's not go there. Okay, so what can you expect from me as your instructor? Now, obviously, again, this is online, so you're not going to really get to know me as well as probably you would in other courses, but I'm going to try to make this as interactive as possible. And like I said, I'm going to do a fair amount of videos. I want to try to do a video every week to set you guys up. So you'll always see something kind of published there, but know that I'm approachable and friendly and encouraging, and that's kind of my MO. That's who I am. I always want you guys to succeed and embrace the material, and I want you to show up to class, obviously, in normal situations. Now, obviously, being that this is asynchronous, in other words, you can kind of embrace the material at your leisure each week. But know that I'm approachable and supportive as well, but I'm not a pushover, right? So if you're going to say something like you had computer issues and you weren't able to engage the material, if you have a week's worth of time to manage that, I'm not going to buy that you just didn't have the capabilities to engage the material. I do have practical knowledge and experience. Like I mentioned, I was the employee relations manager for 5 years, so I do have some passion for this project. I've also had a lot of conflict in my life that I will intersperse throughout the lectures and material. I have a passion for helping others too. I love working with college students, and I love, sharing stories and helping you guys kind of make sense of things and the material. And actually, my whole focus is getting you guys set up so when you graduate, you're out there and you're productive adults. Creative encourage creativity and others. Obviously, I'm an advertising guy, and I spent 20 plus years, like I mentioned, in advertising and marketing endeavors. So I do like the creative side of it, and that certainly is. We'll talk about how conflict kind of fosters creativity as well in this course. And finally, like I said, I always strive for win-win situations. Now, compromise is not really a win-win situation in every case, right? There's a way to find the best solution for all parties, but it takes some work. So we're going to talk about that as well. What I would like to see from you, and this is kind of, I put a gold star next to this one, be an active participant in discussions, right? So really, really engage that. I put a pretty hefty point total for each discussion. There's 7 of those, like I mentioned. They're worth 25 points, so you're going to be asked by and large to really come up with some thoughtful posts there. And of course, even beyond that, I'd like you to kind of engage with other folks' posts as well. So you're required for that 25 points a post of roughly 300 words, 250 words around there. You'll see the notes in each discussion post. And then also, I'd like you to kind of engage others with up to 100 word plus posts. So we have some dialogue going back and forth here. Obviously, when you teach this class face-to-face, we have a lot of that stuff, so we're trying to, as best we can, engage that. Be thoughtful and respectful of others. Obviously, there's a whole section on etiquette in the class I'd like you to read first before you do anything else. So read that and get a feel for what we want here. We want people to have good conversations, but also be thoughtful and respectful of others. I would say this, number 3, don't be afraid to take some risks with your sharing. What does that mean? It means, okay, obviously, we've all had conflict in our lives, and I've got a ton of stories I can't wait to share with you guys. I'm sure you guys have a lot already to share in your young lives. So that's great. We'd love to do that. And just really don't be afraid to share stuff. Now, obviously, we don't want you to share names, full names, and say that jerk, John Johnson, or whoever it happens to be. But we don't want that. We just want the story, right? If you're willing to share that stuff, that'll really create some great conversations and good discussions. Of course, read the materials. I mean, I know that's kind of funny to say that. It goes without saying to say you should read the materials, but lots of students kind of take a pass on that. I would say you'll do really well in this class if you go actually read the materials that I provided for you. Get assignments in on time. That's another big one too. Now, you'll notice there's 2 dates each week. Thursdays at 11:59 p.m. So in other words, right before midnight is when most discussion posts are due. And everything else I've made due on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. And that's, of course, to accommodate your busy schedules. But honestly, don't miss those dates. I've made that very lenient for you guys on purpose. So there should be no reason why, hopefully, you guys don't get anything in on time. Last thing, obviously communicate. I've made myself available in numerous ways with office hour and also, of course, digitally, my cell phone via text, or you can call me if you want to and leave a message that I don't answer. But either way, communicate with me if something's going on. If you have any problems or whatever, I'm here for you. And lastly, but not least, have fun with this. This is a fun course, actually. There's we do some work. We roll our sleeves up and do some things here. But I think if we do this right, we can have a lot of fun in this class and learn a lot along the way. All right, so let's get things started here. This is kind of the first week. Now, this is how I'll set it up every week. I'll have this things to make and do week 1 or week 2 or week 3 and so on and so forth up until week 16. And I'll try to tee it up this way for you. Now, this is maybe overkill. But ultimately, I want you guys to stay on task with what's going on here. So let's go through this here. And like I said, each week we'll go through this kind of a chart. First, I want you to watch this video. So let's check you're watching this video. At this point, you're actually watching the video. So good job. You're on your way. I'd like you to review and print off the syllabus. It's probably helpful to have that printed off in your hot little hands. But have the syllabus with you. I'd also like you to read that etiquette post I put up there in the top, and that introduction. in that first module. Then the first real assignment here is, and you can do this anytime, but read a memo to my students. It's the first article. It's very short. It's only 2 pages, and there's another little section after that. And that will fortify and inform what you're doing with the next 2 things here. The first one is discussion post number 1. I'd like you to take a stab at writing your first first post about yourself. So talk about yourself, a paragraph or so about who you are, things like your favorite movie, things you like. And then, of course, the second paragraph should be more about the article, a memo to my students, which essentially talks about a teacher talking about whether or not college prepares you for the broader world, or if college is more of a way station. So I'd like you to kind of read that article and kind of weigh in on that one, and we'll have some discussion around that. Then, of course, that will also fortify the first reading quiz, which is only worth 10 points. You read the article, you should do fine on that. Like I said, those reading quizzes are, you have 30 minutes to take those. It's open book or open article in this case. So that's kind of how we do that. Okay, so here again, just quickly, it's discussion post is about you, and then of course I'd like you to kind of weigh in on the article, which will again lead up to our reading quiz, which is going to happen on Sunday, by Sunday. So I mentioned I use a lot of movies, and I like referring to movies. I'm a movie buff, and I love the idea that obviously great movies have to have conflict. So there's all kinds of opportunities for us to kind of use things, and there's no worry of copyright infringement and stuff. I checked, so don't worry about that. I'm able to use things. In this case here, I want to show you a little clip on The Fighter, which is a movie starring Mark Wahlberg and others. It's about a boxer. It's a true story. This case here, it's interesting because this is his family, and it's obviously going to show you some conflict here. So let's take a look at this.
Hi.
Well, look at this.
Look at what?
Why are you hiding from us, Mickey?
He's not hiding.
I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to my son. What are you doing next to, huh?
I'm right here. I ain't hiding from nobody else.
Well, you're not helping yourself with your father's scumbag friend, Lenano. What are you gonna do? Turn your back on Dickie next, huh? All we ever wanted for you was to be world champion.
He's a grown man. He can think for himself.
Shut your mouth.
Skank. Don't call me skank. I'll rip that nasty hair right out of your fucking head.
I'm his mother and his manager.
You're not my manager anymore, and I'm not waiting for Dickie, okay? I'm not getting any younger.
Who's gonna look after you, sweetheart? I mean, come on. I know you don't understand it, but I had 9 kids, and I love every one of you the same.
You got a funny way of showing it, letting him get beat up, letting him get his hand broken.
You fucking boss.
You're crazy.
Fucking
Boss! Mickey is my What did I just say to you? What did I
Okay, so I stopped it there. Obviously, this is quite the ordeal here. So maybe you guys have seen something similar in your lives. It's surprising to me how many stories I hear like this all the time. So let's talk about this a little bit. Let's break it down. So obviously emotions are a part to play here, and we have that a module on emotions. Also, we're going to talk a lot about family dynamics. So obviously you see this is a large posse obviously coming to engage here in a way that might not be the best. So we're going to talk about how family dynamics kind of drive conflict and kind of things you've learned growing up with your family. And some of you guys may have had some tough times. Maybe some of you guys have had great times. Either way, we're going to kind of break that down from a family standpoint. The 2 things I want to share with you guys, 2 main ideas about conflict the book talks about here. Number 1, conflict is inevitable. It's going to happen no matter what we do, right? So just embrace that part of it, right? But we can always navigate conflict better by being mindful about kind of the mechanisms behind it. Now, in this case, obviously, again, emotions are playing a big part in this little clip here. And, of course, family as well. The second point is conflict is experienced and managed through communication. So that's what I love about this course. It's a communication course, and really, honestly, the things that you say and do are really very powerful. Thoughts and deeds and communication are really what drives how we handle conflict. The other thing, a couple things I want to share with you guys, and we'll wrap this up here. Conflict is everywhere, right? This is great. It's just all around us. But I'll say this, and this you'll learn this after reading chapter 1. It's okay. Conflict is a necessary part of growth. So, and being a person who's had a fair amount of conflict in my life, I can say this. I had a guy I used to work with who always said this, you got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, right? And so cracking some eggs is what we'll do here. But generally speaking, cracking eggs leads to some really good things, right? In this case, obviously, we're building an omelet. But different ideas come through conflict. I love this quote too. For good ideas and true innovation, you need human interaction, conflict, argument, and debate. Margaret Heffernan is a CEO and writer. She's written numerous books and is also a lecturer. But it's a great quote there. So know that conflict really is necessary for growth. Okay, so that's it. I apologize for the length of this first video here. I'm going to try to keep these down to around 10 to 15 minutes max. But these are meant each week to tee you up so you can get going on the stuff for the week. Here is my picture. That's what I look like here, and some of the videos might actually have me, if I can get this figured out. You see me talking heading some of these things here periodically. But again, I mentioned that's my cell number there, 262-490-7493. You can reach me there all the time. I don't give you my office number because I'm often not using that anyway. My email, it's a big one, betkerm@uww.edu. Of course, my office hours Mondays and Wednesdays from 2:30 to 4:30 or by appointment. Again, very flexible that way. I look forward to working with you guys. We'll see you in the next video.